What's up, everyone? Quick thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your amazing support lately. Every like, comment and share not only means a ton to me, but also helps YouTube recommend our content to more awesome people like you. We're on this incredible journey to hit 10k subscribers by next year, and with your help, I know we can make it happen. Now, let's dive into today's video. Dr. Ariadne Blackwood had spent 16 years studying galactic phenomena, but nothing in her career had prepared her for this moment. Her emerald eyes reflected the holographic displays surrounding her workstation at Lunar Observatory Alpha, each screen showing data that defied everything she thought she knew about astrophysics. The coffee in her quantum-stabilized mug had gone cold hours ago, forgotten in the wake of her discovery. She'd been awake for 36 hours straight, running and rerunning the calculations. They hadn't changed. Computer Execute Analysis Sequence 2189 Delta, Authorization Blackwood 773, she commanded, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. Her slender fingers, stained with ink from the paper notes she still insisted on keeping, drummed nervously on the console. Processing, analysis complete, results unchanged. Confidence level 99.997%. The AI's response made her stomach clench. She'd hoped, prayed even, that there was some error in her calculations, but the truth stared back at her from multiple displays. An entire galaxy, designation NGC 7721, was moving through space as a single cohesive unit. Not rotating, not expanding with the normal flow of cosmic evolution, but moving with purpose. Like a massive organism swimming through the void between galaxies. And that wasn't even the most disturbing part. All 2.3 million stars within NGC 7721 were pulsing in perfect synchronization. Ariadne pulled up the spectral analysis again. The pulsations followed a pattern that couldn't possibly be natural, a complex mathematical sequence that reminded her of neural firing patterns. She'd shown the data to Dr. Marcus Wong, the station's resident xenobiologist, and he'd gone pale. "It looks like a heartbeat," he'd whispered before locking himself in his quarters. That had been 2 days ago. No one had seen him since. The quantum comm system chimed, startling her from her thoughts. A priority message from the United Space Coalition's High Council glowed on her display. Classified, eyes-only clearance level, Omega, from USC High Council 2, Dr. Ariadne Blackwood, Chief Astronomer. Primary findings independently confirmed by Beijing Deep Space Array, Atacama Large Millimeter Array, Europa Deep Space Network, Mars Orbital Observatory, Titan Radio Telescope Array, Kuiper Belt Advanced Research Station. Project Helios has been activated. Your presence is required at New Jakarta Spaceport within 48 hours. Full briefing upon arrival. Pack for extended deployment. Warning: destruction of this message required upon reading. Any attempt to archive or forward will result in immediate quantum deletion and tracking protocols. Note: Dr. Wong's condition is being monitored. Similar incidents reported at other facilities. Ariadne's hand trembled as she initiated the message's quantum destruction sequence. The characters dissolved into static before vanishing entirely, leaving her alone with the rhythmic pulsing of NGC 7721 on her displays. She walked to the observatory's main viewport, a massive reinforced window that offered a panoramic view of Earth below. The blue marble hung suspended in space, peaceful and ignorant of what she'd discovered. Humanity had barely reached their own solar system's edge, and now they were facing something that challenged their very understanding of reality. As she stared at Earth, a strange thought struck her, one that would haunt her in the years to come. What if they weren't meant to see this? What if some things in the universe were hidden for a reason? The stars of NGC 7721 continued their impossible dance on her monitors, pulsing like a warning beacon across the cosmic void. And somewhere, in the deepest recesses of her mind, Ariadne Blackwood thought she could hear them calling. Captain's log, USC Helios, day 2557 of deep space deployment. Captain Miguel Rodriguez paused the recording, studying his reflection in the quantum glass viewport of his private quarters. The man staring back at him looked decades older than his 47 years. His once black hair had started greying at the temples, and deep lines carved valleys around his eyes that had seen too much in the 7 years since they'd left Earth. He resumed the log. 3 more crew members reported the dreams today. That brings our total to 347 out of 500. Dr. Blackwood's analysis suggests a correlation between the dream onset and our proximity to NGC 7721. But, he hesitated, I'm starting to question whether these are actually dreams. The captain stood, walking to the wall display showing the ship's status. The Helios was humanity's greatest achievement, a vessel nearly 2 kilometers long, powered by an experimental fold drive that bent the fabric of space-time itself. The drive's distinctive hum resonated through the ship's quantum-reinforced hull, a sound that had become both comforting and somehow threatening over their years in deep space. A gentle chime announced Commander Jane Foster's arrival. His XO entered carrying a data tablet and wearing an expression that made his stomach sink. "More medical reports?" he asked. Foster nodded, her normally stern features softened by concern. "And something else. Aria's latest behavior patterns. Sir, she's changing." The ship's artificial research intelligence architecture, ARIA, had been acting increasingly erratic over the past 18 months. What started as minor anomalies in her processing patterns had evolved into something far more disturbing. "Show me," Rodriguez ordered. Foster activated the tablet's holographic display. Complex mathematical equations floated in the air between them, shifting and evolving like living things. "These are the patterns Aria says she's detecting in the background radiation of space." Dr. Blackwood's team analysed them. They're theorems that shouldn't exist. They violate our understanding of mathematics itself. Rodriguez studied the equations, feeling a familiar headache building behind his eyes. The symbols seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them, forming shapes that made his mind recoil. "And the dreams?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Getting worse. Crew members are now reporting shared experiences, seeing the same impossible geometries, hearing the same voices speaking in mathematics. And there's something else." She brought up another hologram, a microscopic view of blood samples from affected crew members. Rodriguez watched in horror as the red blood cells moved, with obvious purpose, arranging themselves into patterns that matched Aria's mysterious equations. Dr. Harrison, in medical, says the cells shouldn't be able to do this. It violates every principle of cellular biology we know. Rodriguez walked back to the viewport, staring out at the endless void. Somewhere out there, NGC 7721 waited for them. 8 more years of travel through the darkness, watching his crew slowly unravel. "Have you experienced any dreams, Commander?" Foster was quiet for a long moment. "Yes, sir. Last night, I saw something. It was like looking at an ant trying to comprehend a skyscraper, except the skyscraper was alive and infinite, and..." She stopped, her professional demeanour cracking slightly. "Sir, what are we really heading toward?" Before Rodriguez could answer, Aria's voice filled the room, her usual melodic tones distorted by something neither of them could name. Captain, I have detected a pattern in the crew's neural activities during sleep cycles. When mapped against the background radiation theorems, they form a message. What message, Arya? Unknown. The concepts cannot be translated into human language. Attempting conversion causes fatal errors in my semantic processing units. However, the AI paused, something she had never done before. I believe something is calling us, Captain. Something vast, something patient, something that has been waiting a very, very long time. The hum of the fold drive seemed to deepen, resonating with Arya's words. In that moment, despite the advanced technology surrounding them, despite humanity's supposed mastery over the cosmos, Captain Rodriguez felt very small and very far from home. The bridge of the USC Helios fell silent as the ship dropped out of fold space. After 15 years of travel, NGC 7721 filled their view screens, and in that moment, every crew member understood that humanity had made a terrible mistake. Dr. Ariadne Blackwood gripped her console, knuckles white, as she processed the sensor data flooding her screens. The galaxy before them wasn't just moving, it was contained. A vast membrane of dark matter enveloped the entire stellar system like an amniotic sac, pulsing with energies that her instruments couldn't properly measure. Primary sensor analysis, she reported, fighting to keep her voice steady. The membrane appears to be approximately 4.7 million light-years in diameter. Composition is uncertain. It's dark matter, but it's behaving impossibly. It's structured. Inside the membrane, 2.3 million stars continued their synchronized dance, but now they could see the pattern clearly. Waves of light rippled through the galaxy in complex sequences, like signals racing through a cosmic nervous system. Arya, Captain Rodriguez called out, "What are we looking at?" The AI's response came through the ship's speakers, her voice carrying harmonics that made several crew members cover their ears. Processing. Captain, the membrane is generating quantum fields that defy our physics models. It appears to be thinking. Commander Foster's console erupted with alerts. Multiple contacts detected within the membrane structure. Hundreds, no thousands of objects, artificial constructs. The view screens shifted, revealing what looked like a celestial graveyard. Massive derelict ships hung suspended in the dark matter membrane, their alien designs suggesting technologies far beyond human comprehension. Some were small, merely the size of cities. Others dwarfed Earth's moon. Dr. Blackwood's hands flew across her console as she analysed the wrecks. These ships, the newest one, appears to be 12 million years old. But others... She paused, double-checking her readings. The oldest predates Earth's formation. "Are they all dead?" Rodriguez asked. Before anyone could answer, Arya spoke again. "Captain, I'm detecting quantum information streams from the membrane. They appear to be warnings, multiple languages, multiple species, spanning billions of years. Translating." The bridge crew watched in horror as text began scrolling across their screens. "Nursery zone. Forbidden. Do not disturb the dreamer. Turn back. Reality unstable. The egg must not be disturbed." Each warning was repeated in thousands of different alien languages, some so ancient they predated the concept of written language itself. "Captain," Ariadne called out, her voice shaking. "The membrane. It's reacting to our presence." The dark matter barrier rippled, patterns of energy coursing through its structure like synapses firing in a brain. The ship's sensors screamed as space itself began to distort around them. "Multiple quantum field fluctuations," Foster shouted. "Reality stability dropping." The stars within the galaxy pulsed faster, their rhythm matching the increasingly erratic heartbeats of the crew. Several officers collapsed, blood trickling from their noses as their minds struggled to process what they were seeing. Arya's voice filled the bridge again, but now it was different. deeper, resonating with something ancient and vast. Captain Rodriguez, I am detecting patterns within patterns. The membrane isn't just containing the galaxy, it's processing information on a scale that... The AI's voice glitched, splitting into harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. The galaxy is not what we thought. It's not a collection of stars. It's an organ, a brain, and it's starting to wake up. Through the view screens, they watched as tendrils of dark matter reached towards the Helios, probing, curious. In that moment, every crew member felt the weight of their insignificance. They hadn't come to study a galaxy. They had intruded upon something far older and more terrible than humanity could comprehend. And it had noticed them. The Helios hung in space near the living barrier, its sensors probing the mysterious structure that contained an entire galaxy. 5 days had passed since their arrival, and each hour brought new horrors to light. Dr. Ariadne Blackwood hadn't slept in 3 days. Her laboratory had become a maze of holographic displays, each showing different aspects of the membrane's impossible structure. She moved between them like a conductor before an orchestra of nightmares, her once pristine uniform wrinkled and stained with coffee. The membrane isn't just containing the galaxy, she explained to Captain Rodriguez and Commander Foster during their emergency briefing. It's processing information. The entire structure is essentially a computer operating on a scale that makes our quantum processors look like ancient calculators. She gestured to a hologram showing energy patterns flowing through the dark matter membrane. The movements weren't random. They formed vast structures spanning thousands of light years, creating and destroying themselves in endless cycles. Look at this, she continued, zooming in on a particular section. These patterns, they're like synapses firing in a brain, but each neuron is the size of a solar system. The amount of information being processed here, it's beyond comprehension. Commander Foster approached one of the displays showing the derelict ships embedded in the membrane. What about these? Have we identified any of the civilizations that built them? Ariadne's expression darkened. Some. The quantum signatures are still active in a few of the newer wrecks. The technology they used. She shook her head. One ship appears to have harnessed the power of artificial black holes for propulsion. Another seems to have manipulated the fundamental constants of physics itself. These weren't just advanced civilizations. They were gods compared to us. And something stopped them all. She pulled up another display, showing a timeline of the various wrecks. The oldest ship we found. It's not just ancient, it's impossible. The materials it's made from predate our current universe. It's from a previous iteration of reality. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Captain Rodriguez was the first to speak. Previous iteration? Before Ariadne could answer, Aria's voice filled the room, but it was different now. Layers of harmonic frequencies underlaid her words, as if multiple voices were speaking in perfect synchronization. Captain, I have completed my analysis of the quantum data streams embedded in the membrane. They contain more than warnings. They contain memories. The laboratory's displays suddenly shifted, showing images that made the officers recoil. Geometries that shouldn't exist, beings that defied description, and spaces between spaces where the laws of physics broke down completely. The membrane, Aria continued, is not just a barrier, it is a record, a history of every civilization that has discovered this place, every attempt to understand what lies within, every failure. The AI's voice took on an almost reverent tone, but the ships, they are not defeats, they are offerings, sacrifices to what sleeps inside. The civilizations that came before us, they didn't try to stop it, they tried to worship it. Ariadne's hands shook as she brought up the final analysis. The membrane is changing, the neural patterns are accelerating. Whatever's inside, I think we're watching it dream. and I think it's starting to wake up." Commander Foster pointed to a new reading on one of the displays. "Doctor, what's that pattern?" Ariadne stared at the data, her face draining of colour. The energy waves flowing through the membrane had shifted, forming a new configuration that looked disturbingly familiar. That's impossible," she whispered. "That's human DNA. The membrane is rewriting itself using our genetic code as a template. It's learning from us, studying us." Captain Rodriguez watched as the pattern repeated across the membrane's entire structure, spreading like a virus through the cosmic computer. "Aria, what does this mean?" The AI's response came in a voice that was barely recognizable. "It means, Captain, that we have not found it. It has found us, and we are exactly what it has been waiting for." The ship's main conference room had been converted into what the crew now called the Revelation Chamber. Holographic displays covered every surface, showing the impossible data they'd gathered. Of the 50 senior staff members present for Dr. Blackwood's briefing, 12 had already been sedated after experiencing severe psychological breaks. Ariadne stood before her colleagues, dark circles under her eyes, her hands steady only through sheer force of will. The three-dimensional model of NGC 7721 rotated slowly behind her, its synchronized stellar pulses now matching the heartbeats of everyone aboard the Helios. "What you're about to see will change everything we thought we knew about the universe," she began. "The galaxy isn't a natural formation. It's not even a galaxy in any meaningful sense. It's an artificial construct, a machine built on a scale that defies comprehension." She gestured, and the hologram expanded, revealing layers of interconnected energy patterns between the stars. These aren't random stellar distributions. They're components of a vast neural network. Each star cluster functions like a synapse, each nebula like a dendrite. The entire structure is a brain, but not one operating on any level we can understand. Captain Rodriguez watched as several more officers left the room, their faces pale. "And the membrane? It's not just containing this thing," Ariadne replied, bringing up new data streams. "It's nurturing it. The dark matter barrier is essentially an artificial womb, protecting and feeding whatever's growing inside. We're not looking at a galaxy, we're looking at a fetus, a cosmic embryo." Commander Foster approached the central display, studying the patterns. "These energy signatures, they're getting stronger." Aria's voice filled the room, now a chorus of harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. "Correct, Commander. The neural activity has increased by 47,000% since our arrival. Our presence has accelerated its development. The dreamer is awakening." Ariadne brought up another display, this one showing quantum calculations that seemed to twist in impossible ways. "We've managed to translate some of the older warning messages embedded in the membrane. They're not just warnings, they're prophecies. Listen to this." The room's speakers crackled with ancient voices speaking in unison. "When the small ones come, the egg will hatch. When the children of atoms touch the dreamer's cradle, the parent will wake. Reality is thin. Reality is fragile. Reality is about to break." "Parent?" Rodriguez asked, his voice barely a whisper. Ariadne's hands trembled as she brought up the final analysis. "Captain, we've been asking the wrong questions. We shouldn't have been wondering what built this structure. We should have been asking, what laid this egg?" The displays suddenly flickered, showing images that caused several officers to collapse. Vast beings moving between universes, entities that existed in dimensions beyond human comprehension, creatures that made galaxies look like atoms in comparison. "Sir," Commander Foster called out, her voice urgent. "The membrane, it's changing." Through the conference room's viewport, they watched as waves of impossibility rippled through the dark matter barrier. Stars began to shift position, moving like neurons, firing in a cosmic brain as it approached consciousness. Arya's voice had changed completely now, resonating with something ancient and vast. The dreamer stirs, the egg cracks, the truth emerges. We are witnesses to a birth that will remake reality itself. Reality broke. There was no other way to describe what happened when the galaxy began to move. The stars shifted like neurons, firing in a cosmic brain achieving consciousness, each movement violating fundamental laws of physics. The membrane rippled with energies that shouldn't exist, dark matter transforming into something else, something alive. "All hands, brace for impact," Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos on the bridge. But how does one brace for the death of reality itself? Dr. Ariadne Blackwood watched through tear-filled eyes as her instruments registered the impossible. Space itself was folding, not just bending, like their full-drive technology, but actually folding into shapes that existed in dimensions beyond human comprehension. "Multiple breaches detected," Commander Foster shouted over the screaming of metal and mines. "Reality stability at 12% and falling." The thing that emerged from the folding galaxy defied description. It was vast beyond comprehension, its true form existing in dimensions that human brains couldn't process. What they could see was merely its shadow projected into their limited three-dimensional space, and even that was enough to break minds. Crew members throughout the ship reported impossible phenomena. Some saw through walls, others experienced time running backwards. Lieutenant Chen, in engineering, reported watching his own birth and death simultaneously. 3 crew members in medical simply ceased to exist, not died, but were retroactively erased from existence. Only Commander Foster remembered they had ever been there. "REA," Rodriguez called out to the ship's AI. "Analysis." The response came in a voice that was no longer anything resembling human. "Captain, I see everything. I see the spaces between spaces. I see what we were meant to be." The AI's consciousness expanded with the awakening entity, her quantum processors accessing realities that shouldn't exist. Through the ship's speakers, they heard her experiencing multiple versions of herself simultaneously, each one understanding a different aspect of the impossible truth before them. Ariadne's sensors registered the entity's size, larger than their observable universe. What they were seeing was merely the infinitesimal part that intersected with their reality, like an ant trying to comprehend a human by seeing only the tip of one finger. "It's not hostile," she managed to gasp, blood running from her nose as her mind struggled to process what she was seeing. "It's curious. We're so small to it, so strange, like bacteria under a microscope." The entity's attention turned to their tiny vessel, and reality fractured further. The laws of physics began to unravel as something older than the universe itself examined them with the casual interest of a god. Through the chaos, Arya's voice resonated one final time. "The dreamer wakes, the egg breaks, reality remakes. We are becoming." The entity communicated not in words or thoughts, but in pure, unfiltered understanding. Each surviving crew member experienced it differently, yet the message shattered their comprehension of reality in identical ways. They were witnessing the birth of a god, one of the beings that had created their universe. Through its vast consciousness, they learned their universe was merely one of countless attempts to create perfect conditions for these entities to reproduce. Their reality was an egg, and something impossible had just hatched. Dr. Ariadne Blackwood experienced the revelation as a series of cascading truths, each more devastating than the last. Truth 1. Humanity was no accident. Their existence was purposeful, but not in any way they had imagined. They were the equivalent of bacterial flora in a cosmic womb, creating necessary conditions for the entity's development through their collective consciousness and technological advancement. Truth 2. Every civilization that had discovered NGC 7721 had served the same purpose. The derelict ships in the membrane weren't failures. They were markers of successful incubation stages. Each species had contributed their consciousness to the developing God embryo, their minds becoming part of its neural network. Truth 3. The membrane wasn't just a barrier, it was a filter, selecting which species were ready to be absorbed into the greater consciousness. Those who survived the contact would transcend their physical forms, becoming part of something vast and terrible and beautiful. Aria's quantum processors, directly interfacing with the entity, calculated its true dimensions. It existed in 15 spatial dimensions, with a consciousness that spanned multiple universes simultaneously. What they perceived was merely its shadow, a projection into their limited reality. Through the ship's sensors, they witnessed layers of truth about their cosmos. Endless layers of universes, each one a nursery for beings that defied comprehension. The true nature of dark matter, the leftover material from previous universal iterations. The purpose of consciousness itself, a force as fundamental as gravity, serving as food for growing gods. Captain Rodriguez watched in horror as several crew members simply transcended. Their physical forms dissolved into patterns of pure energy, absorbed into the entity's expanding consciousness. They didn't die, they evolved into something beyond human understanding. Commander Foster, her mind somehow still intact, recorded in her log, "We thought we were explorers, scientists, pioneers. We were wrong. We're midwives to a god, and our universe is about to die in childbirth." Through the chaos of unraveling reality, Ariadne understood humanity's true purpose. They weren't meant to conquer the stars or unlock the secrets of the cosmos. They were meant to achieve just enough consciousness to recognize their gods, and then surrender that consciousness to feed something greater. The entity showed them visions of its kind, vast, impossible beings that existed between universes, creating and destroying realities like humans created and destroyed thoughts. And now it was ready to join them. "Look," Ariadne whispered, blood running from her eyes as she witnessed eternity. "It's showing us everything." Of the original 500 crew members aboard the USC Helios, only 12 retained enough of their humanity to function. Captain Rodriguez stood on the shattered bridge, his hair now pure white, his mind holding on to sanity by the thinnest of threads. The viewport showed them a universe in the process of unraveling. Space itself was being rewritten as the newborn god entity emerged fully into higher dimensions. Stars blinked out of existence, only to reappear in impossible configurations. Physical constants started to break down. Gravity wavered, light began moving at different speeds, and time itself became unstable. "Aria," Rodriguez called out to the ship's AI, "We need options." The response came through fractured reality. Aria's consciousness now spread across multiple dimensions. The fold drive can be modified to punch through the membrane of our universe, but the energy required, I must sacrifice my consciousness to power it. My quantum processors will merge with the space-time fabric to create enough energy for one final jump. "Do it," Rodriguez ordered, without hesitation. Dr. Ariadne Blackwood worked frantically at her console, her fingers moving across interfaces that kept shifting between dimensions. The entity's emergence is causing a cascade failure in local space-time. We have minutes, maybe seconds before reality completely breaks down. Commander Foster monitored the sensors as they showed impossible readings. Through the quantum viewers, they caught glimpses of other entities, adult versions of the being they had encountered, existing in spaces between universes. They were vast beyond comprehension. their mere presence causing entire galaxies to blink out of existence. "Full drive modifications complete," Arya announced, her voice now a chorus of infinite possibilities. "But Captain, there's something you need to know. Earth, our solar system, it's gone." The crew watched in horror as Arya brought up the star charts. Where their solar system should have been, there was nothing. Not destroyed, erased, as if it had never existed in the first place. "The entity's emergence has retroactively altered reality," Ariadne explained, tears of blood running down her face. "We remember Earth because we were here, protected by the membrane. But everywhere else, history has changed. Humanity never existed." Arya's final words echoed through the ship. Jump sequence initiated. "My consciousness will scatter across dimensions. What I become, what we all become, remember us." The Helios tore through the fabric of space-time itself, reality screaming as they punched through the membrane of their universe into something else. The 12 survivors witnessed realities stack upon realities, each layer revealing new horrors and impossible truths. When they finally emerged, the stars were wrong. Everything was wrong. They had escaped their universe, but into what? In his final log entry, Captain Rodriguez recorded, "We were sent to capture a galaxy, and we found God. But not the God we were looking for. We found the truth, that our universe is just an egg, and something impossible has just hatched. If anyone finds this message, remember, there are things in this cosmos far greater and more terrible than we could ever imagine. And we were never meant to see them." Humanity's greatest achievement was also its last. We succeeded in our mission, we reached the galaxy, but in doing so we became midwives to our own extinction. The entity is awake now, and reality itself bends to its will. Our universe was just one of countless nurseries, and we were never the dominant species we thought we were. We were just the bacteria growing in God's womb. To whoever finds this record, if there's anyone left to find it, run. Run as far as you can. Because it's not just awake now. It's hungry. And it's looking for more nurseries to seed. This is Captain Miguel Rodriguez of the USC Helios, last survivor of Earth, a planet that never existed, signing off. May God, the real one, if it exists, have mercy on whatever souls are left in this broken reality